Give and Go show is back in your life. If you're watching us live, it is Wednesday night, October 25th. If you're not watching us live, it could be any day of the week. It could be any date except for October 25th. We've got a fun episode today. NBA basketball is back. My name is Griffin Queen, as always, joined by Matt Modi and Matt Ferentinos and super producer Elliot Shiatani. I'm not going to go through the social media spiel. We're just going to get right into it. NBA basketball is back. Like I said, we had some great games last night. We've got some great games going on right now. So I want to jump right into this. We're going to talk about last night's games. We had Lakers Nuggets kicking off the season. We followed that up with Suns Warriors. And then we're also going to talk about our player awards, our very, very, very early predictions for player awards at the end of the season. We're going to talk about MVP. We're going to talk about Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, and Sixth Man of the Year. We're not going to talk about Executive or Coach of the Year. I don't think we're going to talk about Comeback Player of the Year. We're not going to talk about the Social Justice Award. We're just going to do what I think are probably the big five, and then we're going to get out of here, and we're going to get back to watching some NBA basketball. Ferentinos, Modi, good to see you boys.
Good to see you too, GQ.
Yeah,
I was going to say, don't forget about the Clutch Player or Clutch Shooter of the Year award.
Are we doing Clutch Player of the Year? I thought we weren't doing Clutch Player of the Year. Because that's like, look, here's the thing. Clutch Player of the Year, who won it last year? Remind me.
Was it De'Aaron Fox?
De'Aaron Fox, yeah, was like the most unequivocal like clutch player ever last year. Great that he won it. How do you predict that ahead of time? You basically have to be like, my team has to be in a ton of close games. And there's no way to predict that, I don't think.
Yeah, and you can't even say it's a narrative award because there was no narrative on De'Aaron Fox being clutch outside of last year. So
yeah. Prior to that, it was like De'Aaron Fox hasn't really accomplished anything, and then last year happened, and everyone was like, "Oh, maybe he's a top 5 point guard." I don't know. Neither here nor there. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about Lakers Nuggets first. Nuggets won 119-107. A couple notes on this one. Jokic had yet another triple double, continuing to, I think, set the record for big man triple doubles. Anthony Davis, 0 points in the second half after a relatively, I'm not going to say dominant, but a pretty successful first half where he looked really good. There were a couple moments in there where Anthony Davis and Christian Wood were on the court together, and they seemed like they were playing Jokic pretty well. Don't really know why Darvin Ham didn't stick with that. And then LeBron James, only 29 minutes played, was super efficient across those 29 minutes, and I think he still looked like the best player on the court. But they're clearly limiting his minutes. Darvin Ham said it in the post-game speech. LeBron James agreed with it in the post-game press conference. So we'll talk about that one a little bit. Ferentinos, I know you watched this game. What did you think about Lakers Nuggets?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the Lakers were extremely competitive, just given that it was one of those sweeps last year where it was similar to like the Celtics Nets that we talked about a few years ago, where like every game was really close. I thought the intensity by both teams was great. And I think like limiting LeBron's minutes, actually, like he looked great every time he was on the court. And honestly, it was just terrible anytime he came off. I feel like AD really needed to step up. And he kind of did a magic show disappearing act in the second half. Like literally the graphic that came up at halftime, he was matching Jokic, and they made a push to the second half. Kept it close throughout the game. At the end, it kind of got away from him. One of Michael Porter's clunkers actually went in, and then the Lakers were just trying to push the ball, had a lot of turnovers there at the end. But I mean, Jokic just looked as dominant as ever. I've kind of seen like, and we'll talk about it with the MVP discussions. I know like Zach Lowe has brought up that, Jokic might have the MVP favoritism because he didn't get it last year. Then they won the title. Everyone, it's like on the front of their mind that he's the best player in the league, but he might like coast throughout the regular season. He might try to get a player like Michael Porter Jr. more involved, and that might impact his stats. I don't think that's going to be the case. He still took the most shots on the team, shot crazy percentages, 54% from the field, 60% from three. Like anytime he's on the 3-point line and they try to do a switch and just leave him open, like right there, he's going to drain it every time.
Did you say that's a Zach Lowe take about Jokic?
Yeah, like he's been saying
who else?
that, like,
you know who else has that take? Starts with G, ends with Riff and Queen. Okay, another guy who thinks that he's probably going to half-ass the regular season a little bit. People often compare me to Zach Lowe. I don't know if they're people you don't know, but people are doing it.
Well, hey, Nina Kimes is my girl too, because I heard that she was in love with those Nets teams with Kyrie.
She does. She does.
And,
Mina Kimes loves her Nets.
Yeah.
I don't. She's not. Is she a Bills fan? Is she like?
No, she's a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Yeah, she's from Seattle. She just like randomly adopted the Nets. There's no actual reason why. She just adopted them.
I mean, for a lot of different years.
Too.
Oh, well, that raises a lot of super weird questions about what you're particularly into that we probably shouldn't get into. But yeah, look, Jokic looked really good. Anthony Davis looked really bad. I really like that you felt the need to throw a shot at Michael Porter Jr. in there about one of his clunkers. He's getting his sea legs back, man. Look, yeah, he's not going to be good every single game. Nobody is, particularly if you're a shooter. Like shooters shoot, but they don't always hit. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just some more notes. Like KCP is kind of like the joke narrative that it was a revenge game, but if you look at his stats next to Jamal Murray, like he played just as good of a game. They were both shooting above 60% from both the field and from three. It looked like they were even working KCP in a lot of pick and rolls with Jokic, which I was like, maybe like he lost a dribble. I was like, maybe a heat check dribble for KCP because he doesn't handle the ball that well. But he was taking like fadeaway.
You don't hear that a lot.
Such a fun idea of a play. Yeah. Like, oh my God, they're letting you dribble? That's crazy.
Jaylen Brown needs to have like a left-hand heat check. If he like dribbles successfully 5 times in a row, do they make him let him do it next time?
Well, that's how he gets his next Supermax. He has to show that he can dribble 5 times in a row with his left hand. Can't lose the dribble. Modi, did you get a chance to watch Lakers Nuggets or did you I know you had a lot going on yesterday. Didn't think so. That's okay. They're not your teams.
I didn't watch any basketball yesterday. I watched the Phillies tear my heart out of my body. The only take that I have is I saw on Twitter that like LeBron was coaching up D'Angelo Russell.
I'm always
almost said, yeah. It was like if you do this the pick and roll, I forget exactly what it was, but like if you do pick and roll, you'll be open at the elbow or something. And then D'Angelo Russell immediately ignored him, took a step back 3. You're gonna defend him. Go for it.
I'm not going to defend him. The guy who posted that, the one that made it like the popular clip that got shared like 2 million times, he edited it out of order, like intentionally.
Oh, I hate when people do
LeBron says that to D'Lo after D'Lo took that 3. Like it's minutes later in the game. After LeBron says that to D'Lo, I don't think D'Lo comes back into the game at all.
I hate when people do that.
That's the thing that really fucking pisses me off because like this is not how it happened. And there's a narrative now. And it's like D'Lo played good yesterday. Like he didn't play great, and there's a couple of things he did where I didn't love, but like he was defensively locked in as much as D'Angelo Russell can be defensively locked in. He was moving his feet. He had active hands. He missed some shots, and he had a couple of like turnovers that I didn't love. But like that's gonna be him. And now it's like, oh, game 1, LeBron's gonna trade this guy by December, and that's just a bummer because he might be valuable to this team. Like we don't know yet.
So that guy, like, he purposefully edited it out of order. How do you even? I need to know, how do you even do that mid game? How do you does he just screen record the game and then just clip it? I don't even know how that's possible.
I mean, I think he posted it either towards the end of the game or like right at the end of the game. Like it didn't post right as it was happening, but like he also included like stuff about like he described what happened and he's like, yeah, and then he immediately does what LeBron tells him not to do. And I mean, I had watched it live and I almost commented on it and I was like, it's not worth it. Like, I don't want people in my mentions, but there was a ton of other people commenting and being like, we all saw this happen. This is not the way it happened. Like that guy you're trying to fuck with somebody's money right now.
That guy should get roasted. Cause if I wasn't in the middle of watching the Phillies game, I would have commented and just been like, this is the issue with D'Lo. And right, which makes complete sense because it is something that is like believable based on who he used to be.
That's ridiculous. But in this case, it's like firing shots at a guy when he didn't do anything. Yeah, and now like people are gonna repost it because it's what is it, like a lie travels faster than the truth or whatever it is. I don't even know the saying.
It's low hanging fruit. It's like, oh, we can like immediately roast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's ridiculous. All right, well then I take back the only take I had of the game.
Well, look, if it happens again in game 2, I'll let you repeat the pick. I'm happy to let you get some D'Lo shots in. Let's move on to Suns Warriors. Suns won a close one, 108-104. Suns were missing Bradley Beal. Warriors were missing Draymond Green. I can leave it up to you guys on which is the bigger loss between the two of those gentlemen. Booker had an incredible game, like off to the races for a potential MVP season. He had 32, 6 and 8. Clay had a pretty bad game from 3. Curry had just about as bad of a game from 3, maybe even a worse game from 3, but Curry was keeping them in the game pretty late. Ferentinos, what were your thoughts on this one?
Notice that the Suns were running a lot of pick and roll action from Nurkic at the top, and it was effective. I mean, when they're running it with KD and Booker, it's an automatic bucket. I'm gonna look up the name for their backup center because he really impressed me.
Jock Landale?
Not Landale for the Suns. I forgot who they
Eubanks.
were. Yes, Eubanks.
Oh,
was
Eubanks,
playing
yeah.
really well.
They just lost a second round pick because of him.
He was playing in clutch time, and I thought it was like one of the former Raptor. The DM wanted to let us know.
And he former Blazer, right? Was he? He was in the. Was he in the?
He's been on a few teams. They lost a second round pick. They announced that they lost a second round pick today because they talked to him, I think, before free agency actually started. Second round pick, no one cares. Also, it's Drew Eubanks. Like, it's not like getting Kevin Durant months ahead of time or something like that. Draymond Green, but it's It's funny that he had a really good game, and then immediately afterwards they announced repercussions for the Suns. But yeah, he was good, and Jokic playing point center, point power forward, whatever you want to call him, doing a lot of stuff from the elbow, working things out of the post. Nurkic.
Yeah. All good.
Yeah, I mean this is who he was before all the injuries, and this is obviously who the Suns want him to be. And look, if he's healthy and Devin Booker's healthy, kind of the 2-man game as distributors between the two of them, the Suns can look at this and say, we don't need a traditional point guard. We've got 2 guys that can rack up 5 to 8 assists easy on their own while also getting buckets.
I would think that's fool's gold. I think it's easy to say that, and like for certain points, you probably can get away with not having a point guard. But I just think it's one of those things where teams try to convince themselves of a missing position. Like, no, we can. I'm trying to think of an example, but like, oh, we don't need good receivers. We have a good tight end, and like, yeah, unless you have Mahomes and Kelsey, it's not going to work. I don't know.
I mean, here's one of that easy one last year before they got Russell Westbrook for a few years. The Clippers.
And the Celtics. The Celtics are like even Brogdon.
Yeah, Marcus Smart is your point guard. It's like, is he?
You sure about that?
Yeah, I think you guys are going to trade him, and then proceeds to trade him. Yeah, look, I think, I mean, Jordan Goodwin is going to soak up some minutes at point guard. He was part of the Beal trade, and basically he was a throw-in because Beal wanted him to go to this, like, because Beal bent the Wizards over a barrel and showed them the 50 states. He got to get Goodwin and go with him, and he was like our kind of sort of primary point guard for the second half of last year on the Wizards. So he can be a starting guard. I don't think you necessarily want him to be for long stretches. He's not quite at that level to be paired with everybody else out there. But there's a lot of guys on that team that can pass. Late game situations are going to be a little bit weird. We saw that a little bit last night when the Warriors kept battling back into it. Nurkic looked good. Go ahead, Ferentinos.
The Warriors were up 10, like with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So like I thought that they could have handled it. That's when Chris Paul kind of got going. He was distributing and running the break and just finding shooters, which I think is probably the most effective way, like to just have Steph and Clay just run around nonstop and have Chris Paul find him on the wing. Steph Curry, you also want to have the ball in his hands too, because he had a lot of ISO plays where he was driving. What I noticed is that those 2 teams were getting to the bucket way too easy. Like, that's not going to happen against the Nuggets. One thing from the Nuggets is they have so much length everywhere. I joked about Michael Porter Jr. clanking every shot, but he made a lot of good defensive stops. And so, like, he's really valuable on that end when, like, Michael Porter Jr. and, like, Jamal Murray is your smallest guy. Like, the Nuggets are just really dangerous in that way. And I've thought that those 2 teams, the Warriors and the Suns, like, KD was, like, the biggest player, it seemed like, on their team. And that's not going to be a good recipe. He's not going to be able to guard Jokic down low. And I think they're going to get bullied in the paint.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the notes that I put for this is I don't know which is the bigger loss specifically for this matchup, Draymond Green or Bradley Beal. I would think personally it's Draymond Green just because the Warriors had to play super small the entire night. Like when Looney wasn't out there, or even when Looney was out there, they're the smaller team, but the Suns are not a particularly large team as constructed. they're going to have really, really interesting matchups, like you noted, with the Nuggets if they don't make any moves. I think they're also going to have a really interesting, both these teams are going to have really interesting matchups with the Lakers and with the Grizzlies. I say that with the Grizzlies, maybe not so now that Steven Adams will not be playing this season.
Out for the year.
But there's going to be some fun matchups, and ones that I would probably favor the Suns, at least in, maybe not the Warriors, over the Lakers, just because they have so much scoring. And if you can't count on Anthony Davis to give you, 36 to 38 minutes of high intensity basketball, that small lineup that the Warriors can run right now with Chris Paul as like their third or fourth guy out there, it's going to do some damage to them. And I thought he was really good in a 6-man role. Obviously he's old. We gotta acknowledge that. I thought Kevin Durant looked old last night. Didn't have a great game by his standards, but they're both going to round into shape and they're both going to find the appropriate minutes, much like LeBron will this season. And with all 4 of these teams last night, I just don't know how much I can take from this result because it's game 1. Like, I don't want to overreact too much. I'm not going to be like, oh, the Warriors are done, the Lakers are done. The teams they lost to might be the 2 best teams in basketball. So there's just not that much we can take from it yet.
I think the only thing we can take away is that the Nuggets are still really freaking good, and they're going to continue to be really freaking good.
They're really freaking good.
That's really it.
And he didn't get a lot of burn last night. He got a little bit less than I thought, but Christian Brown seems like he's going to suit or go into the Bruce Brown role really well. He had kind of a balanced breakfast. He had like 5, 4, and 3 or something, and a steal, maybe 1 turnover. Like, if they can get him to do just a little bit of everything and be some size and speed on the perimeter, I like Bruce Brown a lot. We all know I like Bruce Brown. I think all of us like Bruce Brown, but they might have made a good replacement for him without even having to make any moves.
Brown got a nice block on LeBron last night too.
He did. No matter that play, it was like whichever direction LeBron went, he was going to get blocked. I think Brown came from the weak side and blocked him, but he had somebody else coming from his left, like going up with him. Like LeBron looked good last night. I'm not going to pretend like he didn't, but reminder that the man is pushing 40 and these dudes are all like 22 years old. He should be getting blocked a little bit more often at this point.
Yeah, it happened last year. There's like one play a game where he reminds you that he's like, oh, he's like 39. Yeah. Yeah. Like, he's not supposed to be in the league anymore. He's certainly not supposed to play starter minutes or be the primary scoring option on his team. But 2 good games. The Lakers never they cut it within 1 or 2 at one point. Didn't end up making it happen. Ended up losing by 12. Suns Warriors was competitive down the stretch. Really fun game. Looking forward to seeing all 4 of these teams this season. Let's move on to our player awards. Like I said, we're going to go MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, and then 6-man. Modai, thank you so much for putting the favorites in here. It looks like the favorites for MVP are Jokic, Luka, and Giannis. Let's start with you. Who's your MVP pick? Yeah, I'm taking Jokic. We talked about it at the top of the show. What I haven't listened to that Zach Lowe podcast yet was his take that there's going to be or that he's going to not try as much in the regular season, so he's not going to win MVP, or was his take the opposite?
His thing is, so sorry to cut you off. No, but his thing was that he might try to just get other people involved, and like he was talking about Michael Porter Jr. as that guy, like because he kind of helped Jamal Murray. Not that Jamal Murray wasn't bad to begin with, but he was like his pick and roll partner that he helped elevate his game. And it's like, well, maybe he can also get Michael Porter Jr. involved, just get everyone else involved. But he already does that. And like they were saying that if his stats, like volume stats, just aren't as good as the other guys, he might not win it that way. But I think like he also had a good point where they just won the championship. He didn't win it last year. If he just continues to dominate, I could see why people would pick him for MVP this year. Like kind of like a validation. He's the best player. They just won last year, so he should be MVP.
If he does the exact same thing he did last year and somebody doesn't put up like a 35, 15, and 12 season, like if Giannis doesn't do that, you kind of have to give him MVP, don't you?
Yeah.
Knowing how last year ended, like even if somebody has an equal season to him, which I don't think they will, that you have to give it to him because you have to reward the playoff success when you told him you're not giving it to him because of the lack of playoff success.
And he did check out the last like 3 months of the season like that. He probably would have won if he kept up the entire way he played all year. It was like post All-Star break, they had such a huge lead in the 1 seed. I remember we talked about this, like, what's wrong with the Nuggets? What's wrong with the Nuggets? It's like, oh, they're just bored. That's what's wrong with them. They're bored.
Yeah. They solved regular season basketball. And like, I would have loved to have seen them win, 62, 63 games. I understand why they didn't go that hard for it, because they were relatively fresh when the playoffs got here, and that was pretty good for them.
Yeah, they didn't lose more than 2 games in a series. Like, they lost 1 to Minnesota, 2 to the Suns, 0 to the Lakers, and then 1 to the
there were some moral victories for the Lakers in there, some moral victories. It
was a competitive sweep, but
competitive sweep, guys. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I'm not going to say anything about Jokic being your MVP pick. I can't disagree with you on it. Ferentinos, who do you have?
I'm going to be boring and also pick Jokic as the MVP. I don't know if we want to do dark horse yet, because I know you were getting at that, and I don't want to take your pick, so I'll let you pick your MVP first. But sure. I just think, like, just watching the game last night, it seemed like an effortless triple-double. Like, in big moments, he's still just the best player to watch. It's crazy. Like, I think, especially if the Nuggets do end up getting the 1 seed and just, like, coast, I think there's no way you can't give it to him.
Sure. Yeah. And look, that's probably the most valid pick. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction. A guy that's won before, but who hasn't won in a few years. I'm going to go with Giannis. This kind of disagrees with what I said about the Bucks and about Giannis when we did our over-under predictions, because I think I had them going under because I didn't think that they were going to try that hard in the regular season. I think there's an element, there's a possibility. And I don't necessarily think that Giannis is going to win, but this is my guy on who I think is the only guy who could really reclaim the crown from Jokic. Giannis is the only one who I see like as a 1A, 1B with him right now. That could change, but I'm going to take him. I favor his offensive, defensive versatility over Jokic's offensive brilliance. If Jokic, I'm combining their names now. If Jokic kind of mails it in for the second half of the season again. Like if they're up, 40-12 at the All-Star break, the Nuggets are, I mean, if you're the Nuggets, you kind of want to sit him at that point. Like that would be the responsible choice. I think honestly, the Bucks are going to struggle more in their conference. So Giannis is probably going to have to play more. He might end up winning it kind of by virtue of having heavier minutes.
Do you want to know Zach Lowe's pick?
Do I want to know Zach? Of course I want to know Zach Lowe's pick. People often compare me to him.
Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum?
But yeah,
wow.
they were both.
Oh, the Boston in him is so strong.
You can leave Bill Simmons.
Simmons didn't take Jason Tatum.
Yeah. Who did Bill take?
I think he took Jokic. And he said Giannis was like the other guy who was up there with him. And Bill always does things is like, who has the crown? Kind of like how I described it a moment ago. So it's like Giannis has to do something to get it back. So he would have to have a really good regular season. But he's on the same page as me for the dark horse. And Ferentinos, you might be on the same page as me for this one too. I'm not sure. I'm going Devin Booker for the dark horse. I think there is a potential incredible season ahead of him. And if Devin Booker is the healthiest, most consistent player on this Suns team, and this Suns team wins as many games as Vegas has them winning, you got to give him some shine.
No, I like that pick because honestly, that's what I noticed about the Suns game last night. Is I was like, Devin Booker is on one. Like he's always been really good, but maybe it's the headband that just draws more attention to him. But his game is just. He has all aspects of it, and I think he's gonna I don't see him having a down game. Like they're not gonna lose because he has an off night. It's gonna be probably
unless they send doubles at him because Book doesn't like doubles.
It's true.
How do you double him? And you can
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I think he cares about them a little bit more in actual games than he does in summer scrimmages.
In 2018.
Yeah. When he was just barely getting a team around him.
Yeah.
Who's your dark horse, Ferentinos?
I like SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, it's definitely a long shot, kind of like the Ja Morant last year, but
that makes it a good dark horse.
That's
I mean, if the Thunder take the leap that I think they're going to, and even beyond that, if they win 10 more than their over-under at 55 and are constantly around the top 3 seeds in the West, I think he's the best player on that team. The problem is like the narrative with Chet might kind of impact SGA, but I still think he's going to be the guy that is going to take a leap. First time winner. I'm curious, like, you know, how that's going to impact it, especially like would voters vote SGA over Jason Tatum if the Celtics are also the 1 seed? But I think the Celtics kind of have that problem too with like Jaylen Brown, Porzingis. Like they just have a lot of guys, and now with Drew Holiday, so it's hard to really pick one guy as like the MVP there. But I think if SGA has another like 30-point per game season and the Thunder in like the top 2-3 seeds of the West, I think he has a really good shot.
If you want to make some money on that bet, you go to FanDuel. You can get SGA at plus 2,300 to win MVP. He's the eighth best odds, 7th best odds, coincidentally, Devin Booker. I think they were higher yesterday. I think they were plus 2,100. Now it's plus 1,400.
Wow.
So yesterday's performances, I think we can see why, had an influence on that. But yeah, two dark horses that are both top 10 candidates. So, you know, we're not stretching too much, but plus 2,300 is still a pretty big stretch. You might have some money ahead of you, Matt.
Yeah, I think it depends how you define dark horse. I was going to say anything outside of the top 5. My
for
dark
MVP,
horse,
I think that's fair. Yeah.
My dark horse is James Harden at plus 12,000 odds. His agent came in and said that he's in the best shape of his life and that he wouldn't be surprised if he had an MVP season. So I think we can also get with James Harden. Takes great care of his body. Really committed.
I mean, you got to put a flyer on him at that point, right? Let's all just put a flyer on our favorite players. You'll do it on James Harden because we all know you love James Harden. I'll do it on Kelly Oubre, who is going to be a bench player all season, and Ferentinos can do it on someone who's like not in the league anymore.
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons. Yeah, sorry, someone who's only kind of not in the league anymore.
Yeah. Hey, he wins the Instagram MVP. All right.
That's true.
Great. Sick. Good for him. I mean, look, he got $150 million. That's all the MVP he needs. Let's move on to Rookie of the Year. Top 3 favorites for this one are Wemby, Chet, and Scoot. Paolo Banchero won last year. Modi, let's start with you again on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to zag a little bit and go with Chet Holmgren. I think we talked about this in one of our previous episodes. I just don't know if Wemby's going to play enough, like if he's going to hit that 65-game minimum. And maybe the Spurs will make it so he plays exactly 65. But I just worry that, like, you know, they can't really plan for that in November if he like tweaks his toe. I just think they're going to be incredibly safe with him to make sure that it's like his first year, make sure there's like body's developing right, that he can like withstand just the pounding that it takes to be a big man in the NBA. So I think they're going to sit him a lot if there's like even a remote chance that he could get hurt. And I like that is also a concern with Chet. So it's not like Chet's just like a complete clean bill of health, but the Thunder are at least trying to win. So they're going to push it a little bit more. And I think Chet's going to have a massive role on the team. Ferentinos, I'll agree with you about SGA. He's awesome. I think Chet's going to be like clearly second fiddle, but he's also very important both on offense and defense. So for the sake of just not choosing the chalk pick both for MVP and Rookie of the Year, I went with Chet, but I actually do believe that as well.
Yeah. Ferentinos, so you've got for this one.
I mean, I'm going chalk again. It's really boring, but like, watching Victor Wembanyama play,
he's ridiculous.
Like, it's like that's the thing, and that's why like maybe a preview to the next award, like just the amount of blocks that he gets on that impact. Like I think his defensive impact is going to be not that like he does crazy things on offense, but I think he's going to be hot and cold with his shooting. But just like the fact that he could block threes like from the free throw line, like watching the Warriors players be shocked at like the fact that he was even able to get them. I just think like. I mean, I think the voters are also just going to be bedazzled and amazed by Wembanyama. So, like,
bedazzled. That's a good one.
Good word.
Good word.
I think it's so. Another fan favorite of mine, Jason Concepcion, has I don't want to be plugging other podcasts, but he has like an NBA podcast with Shea.
Maybe he'll plug us.
I forgot what his name is. Yeah. And
honestly,
I listen to him as I sleep every night on binge mode, but he just made a lot of
weird thing to admit.
I do different things.
Here's the man that I listen to when I sleep, guys.
He's got a nice high voice like me. He's really jolly and likes to laugh.
That explains a lot of why you like Jason so much, because I feel like you do see a lot of yourself in him.
Yeah, I love the guy. Loves Harry Potter. I got loves Harry Potter. Loves nerd things.
He's a man who loves life.
That he does.
Yeah.
I just think he's He's amazing. He's going to do great things. I forgot where I was going with plugging the podcast.
Concepcion or Wemby? Who's going to do wait, who are you
He's going to do great things. He's going to run for president when he's done with his NBA career. Yeah. Get that foundation going.
I guess
I was just going to say, like, it's not a crazy take for you to say Wemby's going to win when FanDuel has him as minus 160. They have him not even in plus money. So
that's
like
crazy for a future. That's insane.
That's insane, right? Because he could get injured today. He could get injured today. And so many people are going to lose money. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope he plays all 82. But that's an insane bet to make for a future.
I will never, ever advise people take minus money for a future. Too much can go wrong. Like, it can be your prediction. We're not getting betting advice here, but that's
right. This is not the betting advice podcast. Ferentinos, I interrupted you. You were going to say something about.
No,
about
you're
Wemby.
good. I just think people are just going to be amazed watching him play. And a lot of NBA players have bedazzled. Oh, that's where I went.
Like jeans in the 90s.
Anytime they say Wemby, it's like a angelic sound that they have playing. So it's like, and just because they mention his name so much, and I mean, Paul George talked about how he should be included already in the NBA top 100 players. It's like he's already better than so many dudes in the league. I think that just as the season goes on, and I mean, the first week, we're already going to see just how much of an impact he has. I think there's a reason why he's minus money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, part of it's also the amount of money that's going to come in on him. I have the same concerns that Modi does, and we've talked about it, like he said on previous episodes. Is he going to play 65? Because it is coincidentally the year that is the first year for the requirement. I'm going in the same direction as Modi. I've said it before. I'm going Chet Holmgren. I think he's likely to take a good team to a great team. And if that ends up being the case, there's going to be a lot of really good rookies this year. But if he takes a 40-win team and he's the guy who helps push them to 48, 49, 50, he's going to get a lot of credit for that. It's a big ask for a guy who's going to be playing his first NBA minutes, but I think he has it in him. And then for a dark horse pick, I didn't stretch as far on this one, so he might not actually even be a dark horse. I think he's got the 4th or 5th best odds. I went Brandon Miller. Feels like he's getting no shine from anybody. People are kind of ignoring him. He's going to be really good. And the team he's on is not that good. So he might get to play a ton and kind of put up a lot of numbers, kind of like Paolo did last year. So if he has really good counting stats and Wemby doesn't play the maximum number of games or the minimum number of games, and Chet doesn't play the minimum number of games, it's probably going to be a 2-man race between him and Scoot just on how their teams are built. I don't see the Thompson twins getting quite as much burn as the two of them are going to get. He's my dark horse for this one, but truthfully, I think it's probably a 2-man race between the two long boys drafted the past 2 years.
I like that. 2 long boys.
Yeah, I got to scroll. My boy Keontae George is
Jesus Christ.
He's under Amani Bates. So I mean, yeah, I can make a lot of money, I guess, doing the Keontae George bet. But
he's not. He's plus 10,000.
He's 7th. Yeah, you might have. I think he's 7th or 6th.
I think after a certain point, it might go like random order or something like that. Because I'm seeing Amani Bates as plus 15,000.
It's always an order of most to least likely.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at some like Vegas insider site. I'm not even actually looking on FanDuel.
I'm on FanDuel.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if we're gonna pick one of the two to have an MVP season, it's gonna be neither of them. But Keontae George is probably a little bit more likely than Amani Bates.
He's a dog.
Got that dog in him.
He's got that dog in him. All right, let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. The top 3 favorites this year are Jaren Jackson Jr., who won last year, Evan Mobley, and Anthony Davis. Ferentinos for this one. Let's get it going with you.
I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley. I just think that he's got to take a leap. The Cavs are kind of a more defensive focused team. I feel like I wanted to pick Anthony Davis, but him just disappearing in the second half last night, I was like, that's gonna happen.
That changed your pick. Game 1 of the season changed your pick.
Hey, I dropped Adam Thielen after week 1, so
he just went to the Western Conference Finals off the strength of his defense, and you saw game 1 against the champs, and you said, Anthony Davis, you're off the team.
You're out of here.
You're out of here.
But I think Mobley's going to take another step on both the offensive and defensive side of his game. I think he's going to play so well that maybe it'll keep Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland a little longer. And so I think they're going to be already a better team. I think last year was kind of a surprise. I mean, they got Donovan Mitchell, but I still feel like on the national, especially when they lost to the Knicks in the playoffs, I feel like they had a letdown season and weren't really like on people's minds. I think that the Cavs might get a little more spotlight this year, and it might help Mobley get that Defensive Player of the Year.
Sure. So you have Griffin?
I have Evan Mobley as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, I saw you kind of like, do the Tiger Woods fist pump.
Yeah. Another guy that people often compare me to is Tiger Woods. Zach Lowe and Tiger Woods all the time.
Yeah. Let's move past that one. I don't think we want to know the reasons why.
just a couple. There's just a few nerds out here in the world.
Yeah, I don't have Evan Mobley. I have Anthony Davis. Even with I feel like
be still in my heart. I love that for me.
I mean, I don't need to convince you of this, Griffin, but I feel like people forgot how good he was on defense last year because his offense was so hit or miss. Every single game, the defensive impact he made was incredible. It was every game of the whole playoffs, and I think. Again, after last night, the only conversation is that he didn't score in the second half. And I didn't watch the game, so I'm not going to sit here and say that his defense was phenomenal. I'm assuming his defense was phenomenal. Like it's the same thing. It's people forget how good he is on defense because of his offense. This is almost willing it into existence that I feel like the narrative needs to change just a little bit. And like some smart people were talking about his defense in the playoffs last year, like a Zach Lowe. I definitely remember him talking about it. I know he's getting a lot of run on this episode.
Like a Griffin Queen, also talking about it.
Yeah, less importantly, like a G Griffin Queen. Yeah.
Yeah, G Griffin Queen coming at you.
Yeah. And I just think that he's gonna have the same defensive impact that he had in the playoffs last year. This year, like they finally got their team together. Obviously, he's going to need to stay healthy. That's an obvious risk. It's an obvious risk with the favorite, Jaren Jackson Jr. as well, who has sneakily had some pretty serious, like just nagging knee stuff. Continually happen over and over again. It's not an issue with Mobley, so it might just be one of those things where like AD and Jaren Jackson Jr. don't play enough, and Mobley gets it by default. I'm gonna hope for no reason other than just hope that he plays 65 games because I would like to see that. So that's what I went with. I went with Anthony Davis.
I mean, look, we didn't really stretch on this one. Evan Mobley is the second guy on here at plus 700. Anthony Davis is the third at plus 850, same as Giannis on most books. Here's my maybe not so hot take. Anthony Davis is the best defender in basketball.
Yeah, I can get on board with
that. Like you mentioned, because of his inconsistent offense, people forget that because they want him to be the best two-way player in basketball. And some nights he is, but he's not consistent with it the way that a Giannis is. So he's not actually an MVP candidate because he can't do it every night and he does get hurt. And there is the weirdness with him leaving games and then coming back in and all that stuff. But I'm not going to say a bad word about his defense. He fundamentally changes the way a team can defend. And he is absolutely the biggest reason that the Lakers were in the playoffs last year and made it to the Western Conference Finals last year after a really bad start. I don't need to say a ton about Evan Mobley. Ferentinos, you said a lot of it. Led the league last year in defensive win shares. So if that means a lot to you, he's a good guy for a Defensive Player of the Year pick. My dark horse on this one, Ferentinos, you might like this one a little bit. Nick Claxton.
Oh, nice. I was just going to say that. Let's go.
What about Wemby? Why not Wemby?
I mean,
why not Wemby? Well, I guess that's a good point.
The 65 game thing, probably.
It's the same reason that I wouldn't pick him for Rookie of the Year is if he's not able to get one, he can't get the other. Yeah, that'd be crazy if he got it as a rookie, though. I think
somebody
might have done that.
I think
there's never been a rookie player that's won first team or been on the first team all defense. So like
Hakeem was it? Maybe they didn't have that. I don't know. Hakeem didn't do it.
I feel like Shaq as a rookie probably would too. So but I'm not.
No player in history has won Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie. I just googled it.
Yeah, Duncan never even won it he never even won Defensive Player of the Year. He's been all defense, 14 times, but he never won Defensive Player of the Year.
It might have made the All NBA team though if he didn't win. Yeah, so all defense he didn't make, but he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, a couple things on Nick Claxton before I don't know if Ferentinos agrees with me on this one, but he might. He's top 5 in defensive win shares last season. He's top 10 defensive box plus minus, top 20 in total rebound percentage, top 10 defensive rating, 3rd in block percentage, and he played less minutes than the majority of the guys that were top 5 in basically every stat. So if he has the growth that people want to see from him, where he can stay on the court more because he becomes a slightly better offensive player and he hits a slightly higher rate on his free throws, he's going to be out there 35, 36 minutes. He might lead the league in a lot of counting stats or be like top 3 in a lot of them. And for defensive player of the year, they still haven't really figured out who to give it to, because counting stats still really influence the voting on it. Even if he's not number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in defensive win shares, they might give it to him if he's got like 3 blocks a game. Jaren Jackson Jr. last year, while being an incredible defensive guy, advanced stats metrics agree with that. A lot of the reason he got it was because he was crushing blocks and steals every single game. That's why fans got behind him. He deserved it. I'm not going to take it away from him, but those numbers are just really sexy for voters. So Nick Claxton, my dark horse pick for that one. I don't know what the odds are for him. I can find them pretty quickly.
It's
plus 2,500.
Yeah, there you go.
And sneaky value on this one as well. Walker Kessler, who I think is in the same spot.
22. Yeah. What's like Nick Claxton's like 15th or something down? That seems low, but I guess there are a lot of big names ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crazy defensive players in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys who are making their money on defense, and you love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, all the haters saying people in NBA don't play defense, they're in shambles right now.
Nah, it's just that offense has gotten incredible.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Good offense beats good defense more than half the time.
And yeah.
Ferentinos, did you have a dark horse for this one, or was it Nick Claxton?
I'll go with Nick Claxton.
Okay, all right, I'll take it. Let's go.
I think he was a little upset too that he wasn't in any discussions when it came to being an all-star center or one of the top guys in the league, when I think he did make a lot of improvements last year. Obviously, I have PTSD from him not being able to hit a free throw at the end of the Boston playoff series. But now they have 2 guys that can't hit free throws. But everyone else should be pretty good at doing it. But I did really think he had a big impact. I thought he was one of the better players. I thought he was one of that part of that young core, especially when it comes to trading pieces away. I didn't want to lose Claxton if it meant keeping KD. And we didn't. So I guess it's a win for me.
This fly keeps buzzing around me and it's driving me nuts. In case you guys see me randomly doing that. That's what I'm doing. Stupid fly.
Stupid fly. Buzz away.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to most improved player, unless you guys have anything else you want to say on defensive player.
Nope.
Cool. All right. Most improved. The top 3 guys that we have this year, top 3 favorites are Bridges, McCall, not Miles, obviously, Maxey, and Jordan Poole. Lauri Markkanen won last year. He had an incredible season. If you had him on your fantasy team, or you had him on all 3 of your fantasy teams, feel free to take a bow. Me. He was a really good pickup, and he's my keeper this year for one of my leagues because I got him in the 6th round. Ferentinos, let's start with you on this one because I know at least a couple guys on this list or Bridges. That's a Nets man. Is that who you're going with?
I did like that. So another thing I listened to on the Zach Lowe podcast is it's tough for most improved player because Bridges kind of had that increase in his scoring stats. So I feel like he would have to jump by 7 to 8 points per game or something, and the Nets to be really in contention for him to win that award, because he did have his 40-point games, and it was kind of the second half he came on. Same thing with Austin Reeves. I feel like he kind of came on at the end of last season too. So unless he takes another meteoric jump, it'd be hard for him to win the most improved player. I'm actually thinking of taking not Bridges here, but the boy from DC, who I think is a dark horse to win scoring title this year, Jordan Poole. I think
he was pretty bad last year.
33 points per game. But if he just jacks up all the shots for the Wizards and ends up having 28 to 32 points per game, I mean, I don't think they have to win any games for him because the Wizards are already going to be trash. But I mean, there was that one article that came out that I read about Jordan Poole. It seemed like he had a pretty good attitude. And Curry and all them were like, hey, go prove yourself. You have your own team. But I do think out of all the guys that I'm thinking at the top, like I feel like Jordan Poole has the chance to really elevate his stats, which is kind of where I think voters' minds might be at when it comes to most improved player of the year. So I'm going to stick with Jordan Poole, although I would love it if Mikal Bridges ended up like dominating and the Nets were a top 5 seed in the East, which that's dominating.
Here's my thing with Jordan Poole, and you guys might remember this. He might end up getting, and I've never heard of this happening before in the history of the NBA, he might get a pity MIP the same way that Embiid got the pity MVP, because the year that Jordan Poole went from literally the worst player in basketball to like a 15-point per game, 6th man of the year candidate, it was, I think, between him and maybe Ja Morant.
It was Ja, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone was like, well, you can't have a dude go from, like, Ja Morant was already like a borderline all-star, and then he became like an all-NBA player. Jordan Poole went from the literal worst player in basketball by almost every metric to being a genuine contributor on a team who was about to go to win a title. Maybe they're going to give Jordan Poole his pity most improved player. I don't know. If he jumps to like 30 points per game, you can't really say he doesn't deserve it, right? You know, they might win 10 games, but if he's showing out the whole time, I don't know. I don't want to rule him out for it. I like that pick.
You'll have the counting stats. The only thing that I will say is that both Bridges and my player were tied for first. So I actually wrote that down wrong in the notes. It's Tyrese Maxey. I'm allowed one homer pick per episode.
Sure.
This is my homer pick. I think you can build the narrative. Like if James Harden just doesn't play at all and Maxey takes a legitimate leap to be like a borderline all NBA player, I think that he's going to get a lot of votes. I think people like Maxey, even with the stinker on the Sixers nationally, people like Maxey. He's awesome. He's made incredible leaps basically every year he's been in the NBA, and now he's probably going to be the Sixers starting point guard for a team that's projected to win 47, 48 games and probably be like 4 or 5 in the East, I would guess. If the Sixers like continue to win maybe like a little bit more 50 games and have a similar season where they did 2 years ago where Ben Simmons didn't play and they were still good, people are not going to want to vote Embiid MVP unless he has some ridiculous year, which it's like almost impossible that Embiid's going to have any love for MVP. So I think if the Sixers do have not a total train wreck year, it's going to go to Maxey. And his scoring is there. His shooting is there. It really just depends on his playmaking. That's where he needs to make the biggest leap. If he does, I think you can easily build a narrative around Maxey. So awesome player, awesome kid. That's my homer pick of the episode.
He's so fast.
I like it.
I love watching Maxey play because he's
awesome.
Sometimes he gets to the rim so fast. Like he's
got a great basketball name. He's got a great sports name. Maxey is a really good fucking last name for an NBA player, particularly one with his particular style.
He likes Marvel. He likes anime. I mean, how can you say a bad thing about Tyrese Maxey?
Well, he's Gen Z, so I think that's pretty common at this point. We grew up in the wrong generation. If we were 6 years younger, we would have been the most popular guys in town. And instead, we are not that.
Well, listen, this is I'm also going to move the conversation. This is a great selling point for my NBA podcast idea where we interview NBA athletes, but not about basketball, about anime. That's our way to get into the basketball world. Just something to think about.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. You heard it here first. If you're listening to the Give and Go show, you're watching it right now.
And you're an NBA player.
Yeah. Come on the show. Come talk to us about anime. Come talk to us to whatever you're into. Probably Attack on Titan. I imagine a lot of y'all are into Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Big same. I like Maxey as a pick. I like Poole as a pick. I would have liked Bridges as a pick. Those are all. I mean, there's a reason why the three of them are at the top of the list. I'm going to swerve entirely. I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction from you guys. I'm taking Markelle Fultz.
Take the least improved player. Okay, never.
That'd be Ben Simmons. Another former Sixer.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I love Markelle Fultz. That would be awesome. If he wins the award, that would legitimately be awesome.
Here's my thing with most improved player. It's so hard to say ahead of time, and I think the results kind of bear that out, who the actual favorites for an award like this is, because usually the guy who wins, or at least the guy that gets considered by the end of the season, is somebody that comes out of nowhere. Like comeback season of the year, you kind of have an idea of like who's coming back from a big injury or multiple years out or something like that. Most improved, if a guy goes from 8 points per game to 19 points per game, even if it's inefficient, even if his team is bad, even if like it's empty stats, he's going to get consideration for most improved player. Last year, at the start of the season, Lauri Markkanen wasn't, I think, even in the top 15 potential for winning most improved player. No one saw this growth trajectory from him after his Bulls years. And then he was by far the most valuable player on a Utah squad that was going hard against people the entire year. Markelle Fultz has only played top three. Yeah. Top three seed for about a week and a half. Those 10 days, man, they slapped. They banged. Markelle Fultz played 86 games over the last 3 seasons. Last year was his healthiest of the past 3 years. If Orlando can take the jump that a lot of big names in basketball media think they're going to take, obviously it's largely going to be behind Banchero and Franz Wagner. But if Fultz is going from a 29-minute per game guy to a 35-minute per game guy, there's absolutely a chance that he's going to be a big part of that jump, and he's going to get a lot of burn, and people are going to actually give him credit that maybe he's deserved for a couple years now, but there's still kind of the stink of the Sixers tenure on him. I don't even know his odds. I don't even know if he's in like the top 50, but I'm going Markelle Fultz for this one.
Plus,
I still have this weird belief in him. Plus 6,500, baby. We got to take a flyer on him, right?
That's honestly a great pick, because I feel like people are finally starting to realize that, he's good. He's like a legitimately good NBA player now. He
is a good NBA player.
Except for shoot, which is so sad that's what happened. But he's real. His defense is very good now. His playmaking has gotten good. Pretty much everything. He's basically what people thought he would be in the draft, minus the jump shot, which obviously it's like, that's a pretty important thing.
Big part of basketball.
That's a great pick.
Yeah.
I don't have anything bad to say about that. That's a great pick.
Thanks, like the pick. I just think Wagner might take it from him if he also elevates. If he goes from 18-8 to like 25-10, I think he could maybe steal the thunder from.
If Wagner goes to 25-10, we got to start giving that boy some MVP consideration.
Yeah,
because that means that Magic team is probably winning like 50 games, and that dude's way better than he's really good. I think he's the best player on Orlando, which is part of also my problem with this. I think we all kind of already know that Wagner is the best current player on that team. Banchero will be, but Wagner is right now. But yeah, I mean, Wagner was incredible on the world stage over the summer. There could be multiple guys contending for this on the Magic. They have a good young squad and a couple guys who are like reclamation projects. I had a couple dark horses. I'm not going to jump into them too much. I don't even know how much I really believe in either of these. I had Christian Braun as a dark horse just based on usage. I think he also might get some shine for sixth man of the year if the Nuggets bench ends up being really good. And I had Saddiq Bey as my other one, a player who was already good. But if you look at basically all of his efficiency stats after he went to Atlanta last year, his counting stats dropped a tiny little bit in terms of how much he was scoring, but his efficiency skyrocketed. So a full year next to Trae Young, potentially being like his best running mate, I could see his numbers jumping a lot, because it does seem like this Atlanta team is committed to Saddiq Bey going forward, but he could end up having the same numbers just on high efficiency, and then he's not going to get any shine for this at all.
I feel like we got to shout out Scotty Barnes as well. I think he has a big opportunity to make a leap. I mean,
do we have to shout him out?
Did Elliot make you say that?
Yeah, you just get a Venmo from Elliot. Yeah, I mean, we haven't mentioned the Raptors at all, so Elliot, we do apologize, but be better.
But now that Van Vliet's gone, like, I think he has an opportunity. He's always been like, had great playmaking. If he could take a step up, and if the Raptors end up making noise, I think it'll be because Scotty Barnes ended up, improving on a. He kind of had a sophomore slump last year, was really good his rookie year. So I think if he, improves this year, Scotty Barnes will definitely be up there for most improved.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I've got no beef with it. I think Scotty Barnes is a really good player.
The text that you want me to say?
Rookie of the year can't win most improved. Wasn't it John Morant rookie of the year?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah, so I think rookie of the year absolutely can win most improved.
Because Zion was hurt.
Yeah, Zion was hurt.
Yeah, hurt. Yeah, he bruised his dick.
That was before
that one.
What was that?
Yeah, that was before the banging porn stars. Let's not conflate the two.
Yeah.
Do you have something you wanted to say?
No, I couldn't remember her name. That's all I was going to say just before.
Mariah Mills.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. or that whole thing.
I don't.
Yeah.
I was telling Julia about this very recently, and then like I was like halfway through explaining the situation to her, and I was like, I hate how much about this I know. Like, I wish I knew none of this. It's
Yeah,
the NBA is our reality TV. I mean, that's the reality.
Absolutely, reality TV.
Yeah. Any other dark horses you guys like? No.
Austin
Cool.
Reeves potentially, not really a dark horse, but I think just being on the Lakers. And if
There is the Lakers effect.
Just he's been, yeah. I mean, could be a guy. He
Yeah.
didn't look that great last night though. Wasn't getting those calls when he was driving.
He had, I think, the most rebounds on the team, which you don't want to see, because the dude is maybe 6'2". Let's move on to our last award pick, sixth man of the year. Looks like the three leaders this year are Quickly, Norm Powell, and Malik Monk. Malcolm Brogdon won this last year, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he was in contention for this again this year. Yeah, it looks like
he's the fourth favorite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. So Malcolm Brogdon maybe going to go back to back on this one. I'll get started on this one. I don't really need to say why on this one. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. I'm taking Chris Paul.
Me too. I'll just say it. I'm taking Chris Paul too.
Yeah, I like that pick. CP3.
I'm so happy right now that I'm not alone on Chris Paul Island. I really thought I was gonna be, because I mean, I don't think he's in the top. He might be like 10th, actually. Scrolling through this list. Looks like he's plus 2,000.
He was 5th. Oh, he's FanDuel has him 5th.
Oh, okay.
At 1,700. So yeah.
DraftKings has him tied for like 8th, but they may have changed that after last night. I don't know. And I'll just give my dark horse really quickly before y'all give yours, because I don't have a whole lot to say about him either. I've got Naz Reid as my dark horse on the Timberwolves.
Good player.
Yeah.
But obviously we know yours.
Yeah, I'll just go real quick. This was the award that I had no idea, that I most had no idea what to do with. It was like is Jrue Holiday? He's gonna isn't he? He's just gonna start, right? Like, is he really gonna be a 6-man? Yeah, I don't even. I was shocked.
No, do they have him with really good 6-man odds? He has to start, right?
I swear, I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. Yeah, okay. At one point, he was the 5th favorite. I was like, I didn't just make this up. In my notes, he was the 5th favorite, the 5th highest favorite. I was like, he's gonna start too many games. That's what I have in my notes.
Maybe they had Derek White starting over him, and now I see Derek White in like the top 10. So maybe they flipped the two of them.
Well, that's what I was thinking is going to win the 6-man. I thought Derek White would win it.
Well, hey, we can't really give him enough credit for shaving his head. It's jarring. It's like I was watching in at the preseason and was like, who is this player on the Celtics? And it took me a while to realize it was Derek White. So that's going to honestly boost his 6-man. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think this might be the 3rd episode in a row where we've mentioned his bald head. It's clearly a big factor for us. Also, Ferentinos, to get to your point in a second, the Boston media mafia effect, much like the Lakers effect, Derek White's absolutely going to get votes for 6th man of the year, even if he doesn't deserve it. So I'm going to preemptively say that I like that pick from you, because that you're understanding bias really well.
That is true.
As we talked about today, big bias.
We talked about it in our group chat today about your Cowboys bias and how I'm going to teach you. I'm going to give you a course on understanding bias. But look, maybe you don't need it.
Nets up 101-95 against Cleveland right now. Just thought I'd say that. Pretty cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So maybe Nick Claxton is out competing Evan Mobley right now. I don't know. I'm not watching the game. Anything that you guys want to say on any 6th man of the year, guys? It, like Modi said, it's a tough award because you never know like who's going to stay in that role all season. Sometimes they favor point getters. Sometimes they favor kind of like the Iguodala type who can do a little bit of everything. I think Jamal Crawford probably won it for like 17 years in a row.
And then Lou Williams
yeah. New gen Jamal Crawford. And then Jordan Clarkson, newer gen Jamal Crawford. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I have the least amount of thoughts on this one.
Yeah. All right.
I just think Derek White's always been a good player. The Celtics are probably going to be top 2 seed. And so, yeah, just with the media bias getting him votes, I think he's going to get it. I also really like Malik Monk. My little brother's a Hornets fan, so I always had like a soft spot for Malik Monk when he was playing there. And if the Kings continue pick up where they left off last year, and he's a big part of it because he's he's that scorer that comes off the bench, which I feel like a lot of people like the 6th man of the war. Chris Paul is going to be different because he's more of a distributor, and he's going to come in and just hit the passes, hit some shots when he needs to. But I just think Malik Monk will, have another good year. Kings are going to score a lot of points. So that was my other pick. I was thinking if it wasn't Derek White.
You've been a big Malik Monk guy for a couple years now, so this is pretty consistent. Yeah, and look, what you just said, all very accurate. He was a big part of their run last year. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the prototypical 6th man, a guy who comes in is a hot hand microwave scorer off the bench and who can keep you in games when your starters are sitting. So it's very possible that a guy like that is going to be the winner, as opposed to a more balanced breakfast Derek White type player. We'll see. I think it's Chris Paul's award to lose, because they might try and get him one more before retirement season. And it looks like Elliot is saying Gary Trent Jr. in the chat.
On brand.
Yeah, because he only knows guys that play in Canada, and once they leave the Toronto, he doesn't even know who they are anymore. So
correct.
That makes a lot of sense to me. That's it. Those are our picks for our very, very, very early season predictions. There's been one set of games. There should be some games that are finishing up right now. Thank you for joining us. Follow us on social media. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, anywhere else. Apple Podcasts. We are back every single Wednesday night, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, and we will see y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in.